Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Sheffield United Way YouTube channel and podcast. We're going to be talking about Sheffield United 2, Luton Town 3 in our Live Fans React as we do the day after every single game. Yeah, starting this series in a season where we're going to be conceding goals left, right, and centre and losing games is probably not the best. But at the same time, we can all be depressed together. Everyone other than Jamie Castle. How are you doing, mate?
Yeah, good, can't lie. Sat pre-show listening to you guys talk, feeling fairly smug. Yeah, it's obviously the title for you guys says it all. For us, it's fairly season defining in terms of a victory, and performances for us have been definitely improving, and we're certainly starting to look like a Premier League side now. Certainly in that first half hour against you boys yesterday. So now to start getting the points, Newcastle and then you boys, and hopefully on Saturday against Chelsea. Very positive, and to be the best promoted side of the three so far. I think you'd take that at this stage.
Yeah, absolutely. As you probably guessed already, Jamie is a Luton Town fan, and he's also part of the podcast Oak Road Hatter. Yeah, we'll give you a little plug at the end before you leave. But first and foremost, mate, how was your Christmas? Because I don't want to talk about football that much. We're going to have to get there, but how was your Christmas?
Yeah, it's really good. I've been off work since mid-December, back today though. But I was in the US and Canada for a bit, seeing my girlfriend and her family. And then came back, was fairly shattered, and then it was nice to be looked after by the parents. Just back home with them for a few days until I go back to London at the end of the week. So can't complain. Always nice to sort of have food cooked for you and everything. So yeah, all good.
Lovely, lovely stuff. Before we get into the match that we want to talk about here, we met on the overlap set, didn't we?
We did.
And
That was good.
It felt very much kind of me, you, and Joe, kind of Burnley fan. Joe is on our own in the corner where like nobody was allowed to talk to us because we were the promoted three, and it was like we were lepers or something like that. But yeah, we didn't get much time on set either, did we? As in, like, talking.
I think I got less than 60 seconds. They asked me one question about our journey, not about the season coming up, given it's a season preview show. I thought they'd have talked a bit about what I thought on our chances, but no, it was just about the journey we had. But you take being on the overlap, given where we've come from. It was a good experience. Obviously, great to meet yourself and Tom and all the others, and hopefully invited back on in January for the little halfway review and preview second half, and have a bit more to talk about this time.
Yeah, I forgot about maybe having to go back on because I made the intro because I was very, very negative about Sheffield United. Then we seemed to pick up a few points, and then I was like, what was I even thinking about? And then gone back to being quite negative again. Anyway, let's talk about this game first and foremost. So, what did you make of yesterday's performance, both for Luton and the Blades?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it a bit earlier on. I thought first half we were electric. I thought we were amazing. For me, I think it's what, looking back at the game as a whole. Obviously, you're sat there disappointed to have thrown away a 2-1 sort of lead and two own goals in your net, as you've said. But I thought first half it was a bit Premier League v Championship Cup tie. If I'm perfectly honest, in terms of the way we were, you couldn't handle Adebayo, put you under so much pressure. And for the second game running, we forced the team we were playing into a change. We made Newcastle make a double change in the first half against us last weekend, and we made you guys do it at half time. So obviously kudos to Wilder and you guys for changing the game, and you were definitely loads better second half and were on top second half, but almost victims of our own success really. In terms, if we weren't half as good as we were first half, you wouldn't have changed it. So yeah, and then obviously second half you're much better. If I'm being honest, I think a draw is probably the fair result. I think neither team certainly could say that they deserve to win, despite all the stats that I think, I mean, certainly in your favour, but I think if for those that watched the game, I think it would be hard to debate that either side deserved to win. But you create your own luck. I think both your goals were really scrappy. Our last two were really scrappy. Obviously own goals, but you create your own luck. Morris crossed it in for our second, and if Robinson cared more about winning the ball than Osho's shirt, then he may have won the header in the first place and not tipped in his own net. And then for the third, Morris squares it, and it's lucky hits off. Was it Ben Slimani's knee into the goal? It's just one of those. We considered a similar-ish goal, League Two playoff semi-final, where it hits off the keeper into the goal, and it's just, that's football. I know exactly how you boys are feeling, but thankfully for us, it was on the right side of it, and to be on 15 points, point off safety with sort of the second half to go, I can't be more happy.
Yeah, where do you think you're going to finish at the end of the season? Obviously, you've had a great start to the season. Do you think your second half will kind of emulate what you've done in the first?
I think we'll get even better. I think pre-season I was confident of being able to at least make a fist of it. All this talk of Derby's record was rubbish. There was no way there was no chance that we were going to be under 11 points. It was just discourse from people that weren't educated about Luton Town. As the season progressed, I was positive about us as a club and our future and the way we were going, but probably was getting a bit down that maybe we lacked that little bit of quality, that little bit of cutting edge in the final third, and defensively couldn't. It's one of those where I think you learn the Premier League is even more about what happens in both boxes rather than in between it. And I think in both boxes we may have just lacked that quality, where we were putting in good performances but not quite coming out on the right end of results. But December's been fantastic. Okay, results until the last two weren't good, obviously losing to Arsenal and City. But if you watched either of those games, we were amazing. Declan Rice, 90+6, and then City obviously showed their quality in the end. And then finally to get points, Newcastle at home, okay, they were shocking against Forest, but they're still a good side. They're still a top 8 side. So to limit them to absolutely nothing in the game against us and come out deserve 1-0 winners, to go to a very tough place like Bramall Lane and quieten you for the first half, despite then obviously getting back into it, but then the character to turn it around to get the 3 points is huge. And now you go into the second half of the season where we're always a side, and we have been a side for years now, where we've got better in the second half of the season. It took us 5 games last year to win a home game, and we got promoted. And it's taken us 5 games this year to win a home game and see what happens, right? So I think we'll get even better. I think January, we're not desperate for anyone. I think we could do with a couple, but we're not going to start spending crazy money about. And given the coaching staff, Rob Edwards, best young manager in England for me. The coaching team we've got, we're only going one way.
Yeah, you said 2 things then. Bramall Lane being a hard place to come to, and Rob Edwards being a great manager. And those 2 come hand in hand in both games between the clubs at Bramall Lane for obviously this season just gone, and last season as well, because Rob Edwards did a number on us last season as well. But I'd like to bring in Ollie now, because Ollie is a legend of the channel and knows absolutely everything about everything in football. So Ollie, how did you how did Luton play for you yesterday? What did you think to Luton?
To be fair, I think Jamie was right. I think first half, Luton were very, very good. I think their sort of physicality, the way that Adebayo just absolutely bullied. I think it was Anel that we was pulling onto most often in the first half. I think Anel looked like a walking red card for 45 minutes. He got booked once. I was certain he was going to get booked again. And I did think for 45 minutes they were much the better team and very much deserved to be 1-0 up. I think the change we made at half-time made a huge difference, to be honest. And I think, obviously, I'm looking at this from a United perspective, but once we've got ourselves 2-1 ahead, to throw that away the way that we did, I thought was utterly pathetic, to be honest. Because with no disrespect intended, I think from the point that United went 2-1 up, Luton never had another shot and scored 2 goals. Like, there's no excuse for our defending. I can't get past how bad the play was for the first goal, the second goal, and the third goal for us to give those chances away. I think Luton are everything I wanted United to be this season. I would say from watching them, I wanted us to be able to challenge. I wanted us to compete. I wanted us to always give 100% in every game. I wanted us to battle teams. At times, I wanted us to beat teams up if we had to. They are everything I wish we were watching from United. And I thought the first half yesterday perfectly epitomised why they are better than us. And the second half showed why we've turned it around, but also why they're still going to be better than us for the next 20 games as well. Because when it really mattered, we were just awful. And I'm still angry. I've been trying to calm down all day because I knew we were doing this. I was like, oh, go on, be rational. I can't. I'm so angry.
Fair enough. I'd like to bring in Pompey now and just say, do you echo what Ollie's been saying about Luton?
Yeah, Ollie and Jamie have kind of summed a lot up about Boxing Day's game. You know, I mean, we were always expecting this was a key game. It was 6 points, wasn't it, in the relegation zone, and we had to come out of it with something. We came out with nothing. We didn't get a point. And yes, Ollie's completely right by saying that Luton show every single capability of an aspiring Premiership team who, you know, I've said on here before, maybe they'll go down with us. They're looking likely to, you know, because of the length and breadth. And while I'm on that subject as well, you know, on behalf of all Blazer, we wish Lockyer the speediest of recoveries as well. You know, from his illness, that is really tragic. But even without him, you know, in the centre of the park, Townsend and Barkley, they just ran the game, you know, from start to finish. Even when they were under cosh in the second half, and we went 2-1 up, there was always that capability that they were going to break out and they were going to punish us for it. And as soon as they brought their subs on, you know, and then they changed it in the light of our changes, and they forced us back into our penalty area. You know, we should never have been down that end of the pitch. We should have been up the other end of the pitch. As people know, I'm in the military, so you know when you gain a strategic advantage, you press that advantage home, and you keep pressing it home. I liken this to, does everybody remember that fight that Bruno had with Tyson when he landed a couple of blows on Tyson, and the whole nation was at their seats saying, "Wow, he's going to beat Tyson," and Bruno stood back a little bit as if to say, "Oh dear, I've hurt Mike Tyson." Now we've done that too many times this season. We've gained the advantage, we haven't pressed the advantage home, and we've ended up getting sucker punched and put on the canvas. And Boxing Day's game was exactly that. You know, we didn't need to act like Frank Bruno. We don't need to act as though we're privileged to be in front. You know, we take the lead against Aston Villa. You know, if needs be, bring Ollie McBurney back and defend. You know, because he seems to be our best central defender at the moment. You know, when I looked at that cross that came in from Morris, you know, you've got sort of 6'1" Jackie Longthrow defending that. You've got 6'4" Anel, who should have been there, and you've got 6'4" and a bit Ollie McBurney, who should have been in there defending that. You know, I'm sorry, if we're not going to pull out, let's park the bus and let's defend the lead. Let's get the 3 points. Full marks to Luton for coming and basically stealing it off us. If those own goals went in for us at Bramall Lane, we'd be punching the sky at the moment. We really would. And it's a tragedy. It's an indictment about the challenge that Wilder now faces ahead of him. You know, it's very likely we're going down. Very likely indeed. In fact, I'm tempted to contact William Hill tomorrow and see if I can even get 2-1 on it before it goes evens. But we're going to go down. But Wilder's really got to get the best. He's got to squeeze this for as much as he can and get the best out of a set of players who are, to a player, they're championship level, aren't they? Let's face it. You know, we've probably got one, maybe two, who could cut the mustard in the Premiership. We've got one on loan, McAtee, who looks the part, but everybody else is really, really punching way, way above their weight. They're just, and Luton Town came and showed us that, you know, that their industry, their determination, their ability to want to play Premiership football for 90 minutes as well, even when they're under the cosh, showed us exactly, as Ollie said, what we should be about, and we're not. And that's really tragic.
Yeah, absolutely. Very well put, all three of you. I think you've got your odds way off there, Pompey, to be honest. I'm thinking more 5-1 on the Blades to go down at this moment in time. But
I think we're even.
You never know. Crazy
I would kill for evens. If someone offered me evens, 50 on it today.
Lump it on. Absolutely. And before we let you go, Jamie, I want to ask you, well, two questions. It's a two-parter. First of all, Luton, where are you guys going to finish this season? Are you definitely? What do you think you're going to stay up? That's the first one.
Yeah, I think what I've seen from December, the way I think the narrative has changed about Luton Town now. The narrative pre-season, I think if you'd have bookmarked all the tweets that contain the words Luton and Derby's record, I think you'd have quickly run out of space. And yeah, we've changed that narrative now. We've played Arsenal, we've played Man City, played Liverpool, and the world has now seen what Luton Town are all about. And now we're starting to pick up points. As you mentioned, Tom Lockyer, no idea what is going to happen to him. Sadly, I think he's our captain, he's our leader. But Luton Town as a club has a way of taking something absolutely horrific and putting it to our advantage. And it's a bit like Everton in the -10. It's the world against them. And for us, it's not quite the world against us, but just using that to our advantage and trying to kick on and get the points that we need to stay up. So yeah, at this point, yeah, I would definitely be putting money on us to stay up.
Yeah, me too. You might get Pompey's 2-1 on, yeah, 2-1. And the final question before you leave us: which position Sheffield United are going to finish, 20th or 19th?
I'm afraid, boys, I'm going to have to say 20th. I think Burnley just have that quality, and we saw it against us with Burnley, where Burnley tried to play their football against the big teams and get found out, but play it against the smaller teams like us, and that Burnley are a better footballing side than us in terms of the players they have, but they just can't do it against everyone else in the league that are also just as good as them footballing wise. Whereas we can narrow that gap by playing our football. Burnley can't, but I think against you they just have that quality. So yeah, sadly for you, I'm afraid I think it's going to be 20th.
Right, thanks for joining us, Jamie. Really appreciate it.
Best of luck, of course. Best of luck.
I don't know whether to say good luck for the rest of the season, because I want Luton to stay up. I'm going to be honest, but only if we stay up as well. But if we're not going to stay up, I want Luton to stay up. We'll leave it with
Appreciate that.
Right, thanks a lot, Jamie. And yeah, I'm sure I'll speak to you soon.
No, definitely. Take care, boys. Bye.
Cheers, mate. Thank you. Right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop Ollie out. Sorry, mate, just for a second. And I'm going to bring in my mate Ewan and Darren Smith, the legendary accountant from Spain. How are you both doing, boys?
Buenas noches.
I'm good. And no one's ever called me legendary before, so I'm already in cloud 9 here.
Yeah, how's Twitter doing for you, by the way, Darren?
So you know, it's like some people love me, most people want to kill me. The typical.
Yeah, you're either the flavour of the month or the enemy of the month, aren't you?
Yeah, it goes with the territory, I think. Yeah, it's been actually quite quiet since Chris Wilder was appointed, and then it all went a little bit wrong yesterday.
Definitely. We'll get onto that a bit in a bit. How's the weather this Christmas in Girona?
Yeah, it's quite nice. It's quite nice. 20 degrees during the day today, and warm and sunny. It'll do. It didn't cheer me up yesterday, but it'll do.
No, absolutely not. Let's get on to it. So, what I want to ask you is, did you expect either the performance or the result yesterday?
It's really weird, this, actually, because if you actually reflect back on the game, and if it hadn't been for coming back on here, I don't think I would have tried to reflect back on the game. But actually, for a lot of it, I actually quite enjoyed it. I know that might sound a bit perverse, but it felt like a proper back and forth championship promotion game with just a Premier League badge on it. It just, like, the first half particularly was just two pretty, well, nowhere near Premiership standard teams, just basically going, I'll have a shot, you have a go, I'll try that pass because I'm going to get this ball back in a minute, which you just don't get in Premier League games normally. They're normally slowed down, there's people rolling about, you can't really build up any momentum. But Luton just really had a plan of two wide players getting up the field and a big lump up front, causing us all sorts of trouble. And we just really didn't we just didn't really have a plan, did we? It was like a 4-4-2, but without wingers. It was all a bit stuttered and staccato. And where Cameron Archer's done so well coming in from the left, he struggled when you think the big man, little man thing should work up front. And then second half, I actually thought we went back to basics. I had the three in defence, and we penned them in. Like I say, it was just like a championship side. We sort of bulldozed them, penned them in. We'd done the hard work. They weren't particularly classy goals, but they just didn't have the quality to keep us at bay. And I think really the job had been done, and then suddenly it just all imploded, didn't it? And that's sort of that's the memory you get left with really at the end.
Yeah, it really is. And Ollie's nodding away off screen as much as he possibly can. He's almost getting whiplash there from you, Darren. So Ewan, I want to ask you, that team going into the game for Sheffield United, did you expect us to have a better first half, shall we say?
Yeah, and I might slightly disagree with others. That I think Darren's probably summed it up correctly in that it was a back and forth championship style game. It was open at one end, open at the other. But I still felt we shaded that first half just by looking at the chances we had with the free kick from Harmer, Trusty against the post, Brooks' volley. Harmer were picking up spaces in pockets, which is where he needed to go. I just felt we were sort of creating better chances in the first half. And, if it weren't for Wes's mistake, then it would have been a little bit different. So I did feel that the first half, I think Wilder said we huffed and puffed, but I still think we did enough to not go in losing it. But I think Luton particularly targeted our left side again and again. They were going down there, and I thought they've got to do something on that left side, either bring Trusty off or change the shape, which is what they did in the end. And that worked because Luton then didn't really have much of a creative outlet. I think what Luton did well in the first half was defending from the front. I noticed time and again Barkley pressing in the middle and trying to set traps when our two centre halves were on the ball, and they did that really well, putting pressure on them. But just it was frustrating going in behind at the break. But I think the changes that Wilder made put us back on the front foot, and we did so much better in that sort of first opening half hour of the second half, and then it all started to unravel, as we all saw.
Yeah, I think we need to talk about that first goal, to be perfectly honest. You've mentioned a gentleman's name there in Wes. That's the first time we've mentioned it on this video up to now. There's been lots and lots of WES in the comments. So let's go on. Let's talk about it. So, Ewan, was it all Wes's fault, this goal? Because I think there was a few other players that could have played a good part in this.
Yeah, I mean, the lead up to it. Wilder tried to protect Harmer a bit by saying, Harmer was left out on his own. But Harmer, if you're out there, you've got to defend that better, and it was too easy, in my opinion. But Wilder's right; it probably did need a bit more backup. But then, when you're in that situation, defend it better, and then no one's then following up behind Harmer, and then. And then, to mention Wes, it felt like it took him eternity to bend down and try and block it from the near post. I mean, it's just 101 of goalkeeping in terms of protecting your near post, and it didn't do it. Sadly, even the Luton fans, I found it funny because we're all going, "Oh, it's 1-0," and then they'd not realised they'd scored, which was weird. But it was just frustrating. I thought it was another soft goal. We've just given soft goal after soft goal after soft goal. Concentration at key moments again and again, particularly when we sort of seem to be acquitting ourselves fairly well. So, yeah, just annoying.
Yeah, Pompey. Do you think that Wes deserves the criticism that he's getting at the moment? I know he's made a few mistakes, but is he doing enough to kind of counteract those mistakes by saving a lot of shots that he shouldn't save?
I think there's a good keeper in Wes. Just coming back to what Ewan was saying about Harmer, I do think that it was a particularly poor challenge he put in for against Doughty for that particular run. And I also think that I don't think it's Harmer's place to be defending in that region. I think he's an attacking midfielder by nature. You know, he's displayed that when he was at Coventry against us. He shouldn't be out on the wing doing sort of Reece Norrington R&D's job, and he shouldn't be doing, you know, that kind of wing defence job, you know, like, you know, we expect Lowe to do, to get the tackle in and if need be, bring him down before he gets in the box. I just think Harmer was naive and it wasn't his position to be actually putting those challenges in. So I think that's why Doughty just skipped past him in the end and left him spinning. Then he's on goal, and yes, Wes has got a mistake in him, hasn't he? But then again, how many more keepers have we had since, I would say, oh gosh, you know, going back quite a few keepers now? How many more do we have to tolerate, which don't give the advantage away to the opposition? Wes made that mistake at Bramall Lane a few matches ago as well, where he let the ball roll under his foot. And, you know, I don't know if it's complacency with Wes. I don't know if he kind of just thinks that he's got all the time in the world, or he just you know, bigs himself up in his mind about these things. But every single save is a critical save, you know, and that near post, to get beaten at the near post with a low shot between your legs. I remember 1970s, John Hope, our keeper, let a similar one through at Bramall Lane at the same end, and it was almost the end of his career. It really was. He was known for that. The ball rolled through his legs. Various older United fans will probably remember that very goal. And that really was that's a big nail in Wes's coffin. I think in January, Wilder does need to look at strengthening. I do think possibly a time on the bench is needed for him. I think we need to bring Davies in. We need to have this strength in depth, and we need to have trusting goalkeepers to be able to fulfil this Premiership role. It's a very important piece of work is defending in a Premiership game, you know, and goals given away like that. That goal, he saves that goal, we've got a point out of that game. Own goals or not, or he saves that goal and we may go on and win it. But we went in at half time and it was like, oh dear, Sheffield United again. You know, this is the look we get, and it's a shame because I do think, as you say, Nick, there's some good saves in him, and he has done some good saves over the past 2 years that he's been playing for us. But we can't afford to have that kind of error that's always hidden inside his character. You know, it's not what we expect, and what was it, 31,000 fans in Bramall Lane, you know, 25,000 of them all Sheffield United fans. And I can imagine everybody's hands going to their heads about a roll through his legs and went in the net. It's not good for it's not a good image, and it's not a good Sheffield United thing to have in the bag, because he's always going to be susceptible now. People are going to take long shots at him. They're going to try and thread him at the near post. He's got the error in him, and he needs to stop that. He needs to cancel that out of his game. Otherwise, he is finished at our club. He really is.
Yeah, it's harsh words, but fair words. I'm not just going to kick you out for a second, Pompey, just because you said you want Adam Davies to come back in. But I want to bring Ollie in just for a second to hear what Ollie has to say about the goalkeeping position. So we'll bring Ollie back in, Ollie, and I'd like to hear what you think about the goalkeeping position yourself.
Oh God, I'm going to get booted out because I'm going to tell you that I think Adam Davies should play. Oh God,
I think you're going to say Jordan Arisa then.
That's it. No, I think that's the thing for me, though. I think Pompey summed it up quite well, but it's too many mistakes for me now from Wes. I've lost any confidence that I would have in his ability to be able to do the job. I think it started at Bournemouth. I'm not saying that was the first one of the season, but it was the first big one that you really felt cost us in a game where maybe there was still something on the table for us. He then followed that up, doing another one at Chelsea. I'm 100% sticking blame on him for the one at Villa. We've then got one of them, maybe one and a half of them that came yesterday. That's potentially 5 points that he's just chucked away in last 2 games. We're not in a position where we can afford to do that. We can't have somebody making 97th minute mistakes to cost us a win and then chucking one away immediately in a possibly the biggest game of the season at Bramall Lane. It's just unacceptable for me. And I think for the most part, my immediate reaction is I'd want to find a way to defend him. I'd want to say, this is an understandable mistake because X. Like against Villa, there was an excuse. The second goal yesterday, there's an excuse. Robinson's got to do better. The first goal, there's no excuse for me. Harmer might have been rubbish, might have been weak, but that weren't even a shot. You know what I mean? It's like a back pass that is somehow let squeak through his legs, and it's just unacceptable. So I think for me, I would probably give Davis a go, but I think more importantly than that, it would be the priority of the club to sign a new goalkeeper in January. Obviously, there's some names out there that people would be interested in. For me, Victor Johansson at Rotherham's got a release clause. He gets sold on the cheap if they get relegated. So you go a little bit higher than his release clause in January, and they say, actually, we might as well take this rather than lose it all in the summer. And I think we've got to find somebody because it's just not good enough. I think also it's his decision making. So I think sometimes he gets caught in two minds. He stays so deep on his line that he draws the defenders into him. That creates the mistake for the second goal, or he randomly comes sprinting out and misses the ball. He seems to not have that moment in him to make the right decisions when we need it, which holds him back. I also think he's a bit too small for a goalkeeper, and I think we see that mistake come in him on crosses where he's vulnerable and where he just has that little bit of a rick in his technique as well. So yeah, there's just been one mistake too many. I think on the stats, he's made the most mistakes in the division now, leading to goals from any goalkeeper. And that says it all for me. You've got to improve on that position. We need someone to win us points, not to cost us.
Very fair. Very, very fair, Ollie, there. I'd like to hear from you now, Darren, but I'd like to spin it in a slightly different way and try and go a bit more positive and find out what you thought to Chris's decision to go 5 at the back. And it certainly changed how the game was going, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the left-hand side's been a problem for us all season, hasn't it? And Trusty has been doing okay in that job, but he's had quite a lot of protection in front of him and around him because we've been playing with 20% possession and never really been caught out. I think that goal was a typical, he's not really a left-back. He wasn't out wide enough to cover Hamer, and Hamer... I just wanted to touch on Hamer, actually, and his part in the goal. I actually think the reason he was out there and exposed out there is that goes back to the Chelsea game. I don't know if you remember, Chris was saying that we were really disciplined in our performance, except for the first 10 or 15 minutes after the second half. And if you actually look, it's Hamer that starts chasing around looking for centre halves and trying to win the ball up high up the pitch. And then he didn't play him in the centre against Villa. And I think he was a bit low to put him in a disciplined role against Luton. So I think we've got a bit of a dilemma with him because he's a quality player on the ball, but we're struggling to find a place for him off the ball. And I think that's where he got exposed, really. But like I say, I think if we'd have had a proper left back behind him, it'd have probably never made its way to Wes. But definitely the shape suited it. It seemed to suit everybody, didn't it? It seemed to suit Nilly, Chris Wilder, the players. They just went back onto autopilot and they sort of went, well, this is not a Premier League team that we're playing against. It's a Championship team and we can sort of play from memory here. And it worked straight away, to be honest. It brought Hamer and McAtee more into the game. Sousa was able to mop everything up and actually showed some decent passes as well, actually, which surprised me a bit. And we sort of got a bit more out of McBurney and Archer up front as well. And Lowe just gave us some natural width. And Baldock got forward like he used to. So it clearly worked. But then equally, I think by having effectively a back five, when Luton pushed after the substitutions and were pushing for the goal, we dropped so much deeper because we had a back five instead of a back four. We were suddenly defending the box, Hecky style, really, rather than Chris's style, which is for a defence to be protected by a midfield with a low block. So you can tell that we're sort of caught between an old manager and a new manager here, and that disorganisation is what really sort of killed us in that last 15, 20 minutes. Whereas Luton just played to a plan, and they just slotted a couple of extra players into it this summer with a bit of experience and a bit of quality, and they're limited, but they know what they're doing, a bit like when we were promoted under Chris 3-4 years ago.
Yeah, I'm going off a little bit off script here. Can we all just agree that Chris Wilder needs to go back to the tracksuit? Nods from everyone, yeah? Has to be. We don't win games of football when Chris Wilder's in a suit. So, Chris, if you're listening right now, I know you are, go back to the tracksuit, please. So, Ewan, I want to talk to you just for a second about actually not for a second, because this is the most positive thing that happened in the whole game. let's milk it for as much as what we can. The 2 goals that we scored, were we value for those 2 goals?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the second one, like, I did wonder whether it was ever going to go in from Anel. It just seemed to just ricochet off someone else onto someone else, and you just thought, is this ever going to go in? But it was actually quite a composed finish in the end. I looked at it back. I thought he's thought about that when he's hit it, because he knew that was the only corner to get it in, and opened his foot up. And I thought McBurney's goal was good. It was clever by McAtee just to react instantly to assist, and he played to the whistle. You know, he didn't sort of lie around on the floor looking for the foul. It was like, well, actually, we're in here. And he flicked it out to McBurney. And just to say, actually, I read something on BBC Sports saying that the ref allowed a smart advantage. And like, I look back, I'm thinking, he hasn't allowed an advantage at all. He wasn't going to give anything. He just let it play on. And I thought they just tried to give credit for credit's sake, because the ref didn't cost us a game, but he was very poor. I mean, there's no escape. There's so much inconsistency. But I've gone off track in terms of the goals. Yeah, the goals were really, really well set up. They were typical United goals under Wilder, I felt, in terms of going to the byline and stuff like that, and cross it in. It was good to see. Anel was starting to bomb forward as well. Like Darren said, with that change in shape, everyone just seemed to know their roles and what they were meant to be doing, and it was a lot better. And it was great to see those goals going in, but you'll probably go back to how we let it slip again. But yeah, all good.
Yeah, all good. Sorry about this, Ewan, but I'm going to have to drop you out and bring Pompey back in and ask Pompey, were those 10 of the most enjoyable minutes this season, us scoring 2 goals within kind of 8 or 9 minutes? Because I was going absolutely crazy thinking, we're back. Sheffield United are back. What about you?
And what Ewan's just said as well, they were typically Wilder goals, weren't they? We've seen that performance during the Wilder seasons where we've absolutely gone at the opposition team and we've not let them out of their half. We've just gone straight back at them, and we put it wide and we put it across the box, and the cops on their feet and the crowd are on their feet, and suddenly the ball ends up getting bundled over the line. How many times you've seen Leon Clark do that, and Billy Sharp and countless other people roll the ball over the line, but we still pressed our advantage. And yes, that 10 minutes was absolutely fantastic. I did think as well, I thought, we've got this. We can climb off the bottom now and we can make a go of it. We're still probably going to get relegated, but we're going to make a go of it. Yeah. And as soon as Luton kicked off and they went up the other end of the pitch, I said to my wife, I said, watch this. Just watch this. They've made some substitutions. And we did, as people have alluded, we sat back. We kind of took a step and allowed Luton to breathe. And once we do that, and as we did it with Spurs, we allowed them to breathe. We did it with countless other teams. We allowed them to breathe, and they came back at us. But that centre area in the second half, I would say from 5 minutes in to about 20, probably even 30 minutes afterwards, we just seemed to be back in the race. And certainly a Sheffield United team that I was really, really having a bit of faith in. Where it went after that, we know. But it is what it is, isn't it? That's exactly why we are Sheffield United supporters. It must be really dull to be a Man City supporter and just discuss the latest win, or it must be dull to be one of these top Premiership sides and just keep going on about the same old rubbish and not have something to moan about like we have. I mean, we're uniquely gifted, aren't we? And I can guarantee, I'm glad I'm not at work actually soon, because work would be great. People smirking behind their desks and saying, "Well, you threw that one away, didn't you?" Because that's what makes us Sheffield United supporters, isn't it?
Pompey, I don't want to hear this. I don't want to hear this.
Thank goodness
that's one of the worst things about going to work is just I work in an office full of Leeds fans.
Yeah.
And yes, they threw it away as well. But at the same time, they're going great guns and we're not. And I hate talking to
But at least the other Sheffield club, not Sheffield FC, the other one. At least they're not doing too well. Yeah, that's the one, Hallam FC. At least they're not doing too well. So people in Sheffield have got something to hang their coats on here. You know what I mean? I would hate to think that the other team, whatever they are called, were near the top of the division that they're in. I can't remember which one it is. And we were at the bottom doing really poorly, you know. Yeah, that would just be hell. But it is what it is, isn't it? You know, that centre section of that half, that second half, was where we should be for 90 minutes. And hopefully Wilder can get that. I doubt it, for the talent that we're lacking. You know, it's a shame.
It is.
I mean, I will add this as well, and I've discussed this before. Had we not, and we can wax lyrical all we want about Berger and Dye, but I will say this, that I don't think we'd be in the position we are had we got. And I've never rated Berger much, and Dye certainly is one of the best players I've seen in the Blade shirt. I think we would be certainly knocking on the door of being out of the relegation zone, if not out of the relegation zone, had we still got him on the side, because he was an outlet that we lack. He was an outlet we lack. You only look at what McAtee did in the second half when he took players on and took the ball forward, and there was nobody with him really, you know. And remember when we had Morgan Gibbs-White and then Dye playing in a kind of a 2 number 10 roles with a front man in front of him, Billy Sharp usually, and we would just take the ball up the pitch, and that's what we're lacking. There's a big hole in that pitch that's Illiman and Dye shaped. It really is.
Yeah, we've really struggled for creativity and pace. I can't remember the last time we had 4 or 5 attacking players with pace, and that seems to be the blueprint to score goals in this league, and everybody seems to have that pace except for us, it seems. Don't get me wrong.
Who was the last Nick, who was the last quick player that we ever had? Who was the last player? I'm not talking Oliver Burke, all right? So forget that, right? Because that's like having a bike without.
There as well.
It's like having a bike without a chain, having Oliver Burke. You know what I mean? So, you know, Billy Wiz in flip flops is what he was. You know, but
let's put it one way. It's been a long time since we've had a few of these attacking players, because you can have 1 or 2 and that's fine, but we've not played with wingers for a hell of a long time, and I don't know, maybe it needs a bit of an overhaul, and maybe we do need a little bit of pace in the team, because if you've not got a Didsey that's going to control everything, or an Illiman and Dye that's going to pick the ball up and beat 5 or 6 men, then you're just struggling. And obviously when we didn't have Didsey, but we were passing the ball around fantastically down the wings and the wide overloads and stuff, that was fine. That I won't say papered over the cracks, but it certainly offered as a different outlet. But yeah, I've just missed having any sort of pace in the team. But let's talk about some of the players from this game, Ollie. So Vinny Souza won Lincolnshire Blades Man of the Match. There weren't many to choose from, but he seems to have come out of this game a little bit more unscathed than others. Ollie Mack and Anel both got a 7.7 and a 7.6 respectively on FootMob as the ratings, but do their ratings get pushed up by the goals? Probably.
Yes.
Who did you think came out of this game with a bit of credit?
Well, I agree with that first one. I think Vinny Souza was man at match. I think it was probably, arguably, his best game for United. I do think, particularly first half, when they got on top of us, he was the one bright spark coming through it, where you actually thought, we've found somebody who's able to compete here. He can physically compete. He can actually win the ball. He was getting on the ball as well. He dropped in, I think, in Norwood's absence. He seemed to be the player who was making himself available, who wanted the ball, who actually wanted to try and help United progress forward. So certainly I agree he would be probably my choice for United's man of the match. I think Anel has been inflated by his goal. I think that's obviously boosted his numbers up, because I think he was bullied for 45 minutes by Adebayo. I think he physically couldn't compete at that level. And so he was really exposed in terms of us being under pressure and not being able to cope with the threats that Luton have got to offer. I would shout out McAtee, because he's the only player we've got who's got any kind of ability to go forwards, beat a man and create a chance. I think he did fantastically for McBurney's goal. I think he did really well on that. I think it's not just the fact of what he did after to create the goal. So obviously he'd gone down, claimed the foul, but he's clever enough and quick enough of mind to still play the pass and get McBurney in. But even just to get into that position in the first place, he's had to spin, get through a tight gap, beat a man. He's the only player we've got who can do that. And I thought he changed the game when he came on against Villa. And I thought he again had a big impact in this one against Luton for United going forward. And ultimately, I think one of the things I would say is I don't think any of the attackers should take any. I think they should all come out of this game relatively pleased. I think we should be fairly happy. That's not where we threw this game away. If we score 2 goals at home against most teams, we've got to sit there and think, well, if we're scoring 2 goals a game, that's got to be enough. You know, McBurney did his job. He competed physically. He got his goal. Couldn't ask much more from him than that. He had a massive part in setting up the second goal as well, albeit creating the scramble. But the defence just completely folded and let us down. And it's what's so annoying, Nick. It's what's so got to me over the last 24 hours is that not for the first time this season, I actually thought United were the better team. I actually thought we deserved to win this game of football. I thought we'd done enough in the second half to win this game of football. We had done enough to get ourselves ahead. We kept Luton at arm's length for sort of 20 minutes in the second half and really put ourselves in the position to win the game of football. And we mentally imploded defensively and completely took our foot off the gas and let them come and do it. They didn't beat us by being better than us. They didn't beat us through creativity or skill or ability. They beat us through us saying, actually, yeah, go on, you have this one. And that's what hurts so much because how many points have we left on the table and thrown away this year? I've said that it's 5 this week. Add Tottenham to that, that's 8. Add 8 to our total, we're above Everton. We're not in relegation zone. That's we aren't even thinking. Like, I've not thought about all the other games, the last minute conceded goals against Forest or City or anybody else. Just the very easy ones, 8 points on table, just because we couldn't be bothered to turn up and play for a full game. And that's what's so annoying because we can argue that we're not good enough or that we've not got the squad or we've not got the players. But we've competed and we've given up mentally to lose these games. And I can't forgive that. And it's just... So, yeah, some of the players were all right yesterday, Nick.
Brilliant. I love that into it. Let's talk about the goals. I'm going to drop Ollie out just for a second and bring Ewan back in. And I want to talk about the goals. I'll ask you first, Darren. The goals that we conceded yesterday, what do you put them down to?
Well, it's funny. I'm just touching on what Ollie just said. I mean, we talked about the first goal. Obviously, it was the weak left-hand side, and Wes is in just a horrible vein of form, isn't it, at the moment, or lack of form. I mean, I've noticed this season more than any other that this is not an 11-man game anymore. The substitutions seem to make all the difference, and the managers need to be on top of it every minute. It's like even yesterday, we changed the game when Lowe came on, not because of Lowe, but just because we changed the formation. Credit to Luton, they brought 2 subs on. Morris created both own goals. We saw it for ourselves against Villa. Everyone was amazed that McAtee and Hamer didn't start, but they actually changed the game when we got the result at Villa. We've had these games like at Spurs where their subs just changed the game, and we had such a thin bench. And it feels like the managers just have to be absolutely on the game, don't they? For every minute, if they've changed this, we need to change that, and we need to adapt to this and adapt to that. And I think that's what happened with the second and third goals. They had fresh legs. Morris has always been a handful against us, I think, and I was quite relieved he didn't start. And then he sort of changed the game, and we didn't really respond very quickly. We just sort of. I think we thought the game had been won, and we just thought we'd need to play it out, and we just never really got hold of and controlled the ball, to be honest, to really keep them at bay, and that's what we needed. We took Hamer off, and we just never really controlled the ball. Slimani never really got hold of it. Sousa starts to flag for the last 10 or 15 minutes. I think you notice that every game, and. I don't know. I just they were just messy goals, weren't they? I mean, there was nothing about them. Like I've said about the rest of the game, they were championship goals. That you can't believe they've actually appeared on Match of the Day. To be fair.
Yeah, very good point. I think we're running a little bit over, so let's get into the beefy question. Is this it, Darren? Is it over?
Well, I've actually, when you just mentioned about Twitter before, I actually came out after I'd reflected on the game and just thought that was a turning point. I think what happens in the window will now be dictated by that result. I'm hoping that the players don't give up like they did for Hecky. Now that the chances are that we won't stay up. So yeah, I think it was a real sliding doors moment in the season. I think we've gone from hoping we can stay up to virtually having no chance, if I'm honest with you.
Fair enough, Darren. I'm going to leave it there with you. Thank you very much for joining us today, mate. Great to talk to you as always. Coming with some great points. So I'll drop you out. Thank you very much, and I'll bring Ollie back in. Ewan, I want to find out if you think it's over.
Yes.
No, I'm hoping someone's going to say no.
I mean, there's still plenty of points to play for. You know, there is that, but there needs to be some sort of drastic changes in personnel in key areas, which we've already identified. One in particular in between the sticks. You know, Ollie's already pointed out in terms of how many points we've lost due to mistakes in that area, and yeah, I think it was more a psychological blow yesterday, but that's where Wilder's going to earn his money if he's going to try and manage that team to keep psychologically well and up for it, and at least give us some sort of hope. You know, that's all we ask for. I know Andrew Roy from Blades Pod keeps saying that. You know, that's all we want is just a bit of hope, and he's right. That, you know, we knew coming into the season we're more likely than not going to go down, but we just wanted to go in there with a bit of a fight. I felt like for the first few games while there's been back, there's been a better shape. There's been a little bit more identity and the plan. And yeah, it was always going to be tough, but yeah, it was just a massive psychological blow that yesterday. And we'll just, you know, I'll never write things off, but I'm just, you know, hoping for the best, expecting, you know, the inevitable.
Yeah, but you didn't even say the worst, you said the inevitable, which is fair enough how we're all feeling right now. Also, I'm going to brush past the fact you mentioned another podcast on this podcast, because this is also an audio podcast, guys. Well, yeah, I'm only joking. Blades Pod, absolutely brilliant podcast. And I'm going to leave it there with you, Ewan. Thank you very much for joining us yet again. I'll drop you out. We will speak to Pompey next and end with Mr. Beastly Ole. Pompey, is it over?
Yeah. I mean, just reflecting on what Ewan says about hope. We had hope up to about the 77th minute on that game on Boxing Day. 2-1 up. Very much in the box seat to go ahead, like I say, and press our advantage and to actually even get another goal and finish it off. But typically we give it away. And if that's going to be the tail of the tape, I can see we've probably got 2 wins and 3 draws out of us for the rest of the season. We'll probably very much beat Derby's record. We'll go down this time with Wilder, which we should have done last time. I know he left under a cloud. He's picked up where he left off, basically, with a beaten side, and we've just got to accept it. I mean, we've got to be realistic about our future at Sheffield United, our future as fans, and our future for the football club. You know, surviving in the Premier League next season as well, especially with the club sale going ahead. It's unlikely that we're going to get any investment. You know, I can't see any massive spend coming in. You know, 150, 200 million coming in to buy virtually a completely new squad. You know, I'd say there's only 3 players that will survive. If we did survive next season, it would be Premiership viable. So, you know, even on that, with that particular sort of standpoint, you know, our future in the Premiership is not looking likely anyway. So I think we're done. I think it's quite plain to see. I think come sort of end of February, March, we'll be starting to break out the tolls of the bells, and we'll accept our fate in the Championship. And I've got a friend of mine who's a Southampton fan, and when he went down last season, he said, he was all woe is me, as much as we are now. And I spoke to him recently, and he said, do you know, I'm having the time of my life. He said, it's absolutely brilliant being in the Championship. And I think there's a lot of Blades fans that are reflecting that as well. I mean, as much as we like to aspire to Premier League, we had a great time in the Championship. It was all excitement, you know, it was all hit and miss. And, you know, and I think that's where the better football for us is. unless we can power ourselves through and get ourselves a really expensive side. And nobody wants to invest in Sheffield, do they? Why? Not even in that other club. What were they called? Nobody wants to invest in us. Yeah, Hallam. That's the one. Yeah. But yeah.
Oh, that joke's got legs. That joke's gonna carry on and on and on and on. But not today, because I'm going to leave it there with Pompey. Thank you very much, Pompey, for joining us today, mate.
Have a great New Year, everybody. Have a great New Year. Up the Blades.
You too, mate. Thank you very much. And finally, Ollie, give me some positivity. Ewan mentioned that there's lots of points to play for, and there is. And there's a possibility that Sheffield United could go on a run. It is Chrissy Wilder. He can do magic, as well as Tony Curry. He can do magic. So let's just end on a positive note. The players, the manager, the coaching staff, if they're watching this right now, give them a rallying call.
Good luck, lads. No, no, I think that's it. And I think, look, we all think that this is done. And I certainly would say that I think this is done. I think to have got to this stage of the season with 9 points after 19 games, it's unlikely. But let's be honest with ourselves. There's some perspective, I suppose, because I'm as annoyed as anybody today. And I think I've been very clear and open about that. And I apologise for being absolutely miserable. I'll apologise to my wife later and to my family because I ruined Boxing Day. But for the most part, there is perspective to be given here. Where were we 12 months ago? We were about to go into a transfer embargo. Financially, we were looking down the barrel of a gun where we needed promotion to be able to continue running Sheffield United Football Club and actually to be able to grow the club a little bit. That's what this season's about. It's about getting the money that we needed from being in the Premier League. Since Chris Wilder's come in, I do think he's given us hope. I think that if you'd asked me after the game against Burnley, I thought we were dead and buried and it was all over. We got positive results after that. We gave a performance against Liverpool. We beat Brentford. We gave a performance against Villa and were very unlucky. And on the actual paper of what does the game look like, we should have beat Luton yesterday. We could easily, as anything, be looking at 9 points from Wilder's first 5 games. If we go at that rate, we can stay up. We won't, because we've still got to play Man City, Liverpool, Arsenal, Man U. There are too many games against too many teams that you just don't get the points in. But we can go down with respect, and that's what we want to see. But that's also been the difference for the last 5 games. So all I ask to the players, to the management, to the fans, to everybody is let's please go down with respect. Let's actually put up a fight. Let's give me some hope that we are going to go down okay, because I thought we were going to go down with a whimper and I was going to be embarrassed. And as much as I am annoyed, frustrated, embarrassed at the defending that we showed yesterday, we're at least going down with something. So just keep doing that, keep fighting, play for the shirt, play for the fans. We'll take that. We'll take that all day long. And ultimately, we'll go down in a better position off the pitch than when we came up, hopefully.
Thank you very much, Ollie. That's what we needed. That is what we needed, because at the end of the day, it's very sad to say, but all we expect is 100% from the team. And yeah, that's what we'll always want and require. So yeah, thank you very much for joining me today. Thank you very much to Jamie, to Ewan, to Pompey, to Darren, and obviously to yourself. And a really, really good chat. It's definitely been therapy for everybody involved, I think, and everybody watching as well and listening on the audio podcast. So make sure you like this video before you leave. Give us a 5-star rating on whatever podcast platform you're using, and we will see you very, very soon. Thank you very much for joining us.